Hello everybody and welcome back. As always, I am Mateo311 and this is your channel for everything VR related. Today, we'll be answering the question, should you pick up a Meta Quest 3 right now? Or more importantly, is VR right for you? And if so, what are the best hardware options? Now, I'm actually a huge VR enthusiast, but unlike many others out there, I acknowledge the fact that VR is just not for everyone. I'm approaching this video to find out if it's right for you. And it doesn't matter if you're a huge gamer or never game at all, if you've tried multiple different VR headsets or you've never tried VR. I'm going to explain it in a manner that you understand by the end if it's right for you specifically, so you don't go out there and end up with buyer's remorse. Now, there are of course links and timestamps if you want to skip ahead to a specific topic, but let's start things off with the most important factor, the cost of entry. Now, the Quest 3 actually starts at $499 in the US, it goes up from there, and if you do like it, you're probably going to want at least one accessory like a battery pack. So just think that your initial investment is at least $500 plus tax, and that's a lot for a device that you don't know if you really want or if you'll use. So let's start it from that angle. Is there a cheaper entry point for people who just are not sure about VR? And here's where it's a little sketchy. Unfortunately, that's about as cheap as it gets unless you go for something older or refurbished or someone selling it on eBay. Now, if you're gonna go that route because you're completely unsure, should you pick up a Quest 2 or should you get a brand new Quest 2? This is where things go a little bit sideways. Unless money is extremely tight and you're really scared about buyer's remorse, only then would I recommend you go look out either on eBay or find some crazy deal and try and get a Quest 2 for something like $100 or $150. That would be an insane value. You could still use it for PCVR. It's got a lot of other uses besides just Quest gaming. But the issue with picking up a Quest 2 right now is you're not going to have access to the latest games that are starting to come out. There's big exclusives from Meta, like Batman Arkham Shadow. So that's just one example, but a lot of the newer games are not going to be supported on the Quest 2. It's like buying a PlayStation 4 now when the PlayStation 5 has been out for quite some time. So just consider that. So unless you really want to get into VR for as cheap as possible, just to see if it's right for you, you want to have a headset for a couple months so you understand if it's going to outlast the honeymoon period. That's the only time I would consider a Quest 2. Otherwise, don't do it, guys. The Quest 3 is actually still your best option money-wise, and there's a ton of value. But wait, that's not the end of the money discussion just yet. If you want into that Quest 3 ecosystem, but $500 is too much, just wait until around September. Now, there's no guarantees here, but it's extremely likely that at the next Meta Connect, they're announcing the Meta Quest 3S, which will be a cheaper entry into the Quest 3 ecosystem. Yes, it'll most likely cut down on some of the features. We're thinking it's going to be the pancake lens, which is a nice option. But again, is it worth the extra price tag? It's hard for me to say. If cost is the biggest factor here, maybe you don't want the Quest 3 just yet. You want to wait until September when the Quest 3S gets announced, which should be cheaper. Now, there's no guarantees on that, but I'm just telling you guys, you most likely want to wait on this one. Now, the next most common question to answer is the Quest 3 the right headset for you? Some people aren't concerned with the actual price tag and just want the best of the best. Right now, VR is oddly in a weird situation where spending more doesn't necessarily get you any benefits. Now, I'm sure this is starting to sound like a Quest 3 promotional video, but honestly, guys, there's nothing that beats the headset in overall value. There's definitely other headsets that have clearer screens, larger FOVs, better audio quality, you name it, it does get beat in tons of different categories. However, the overall value is there on the Quest 3, and no matter what you pick up for VR, there's always some concessions to be made. This is anything from a huge price tag or just being tethered to a PC or a PlayStation 5. But before we get into the differences between the actual headsets, let's just find out if VR is right for you. Now, let's start things off with the viewpoint of existing gamers. Let's say you consider yourself a big gamer, you either have a console like PlayStation 5, Xbox, or you play on PC. You love those AAA titles, you love that they offer up like a huge production value and they're really deep and super long. Well, this is where VR definitely varies. Some people will say, listen, the second I started playing VR games, I can't go back to flat. VR is just so much more immersive and I love it. I'm not one of those people. I find it supplemental. I think you get a much different experience from VR than you get from flat screen gaming, and I love both for the unique attributes that they have. The immersion is definitely much higher in VR, the physicality, sometimes the realism, but the production value and budget is still much higher on flat screen games. So they offer up something I love, on both sides. Now, I can't tell you if you're going to enjoy VR gaming, but I can tell you how it differs. For starters, VR is much more physical. Playing a VR shooter can sometimes feel much closer to something like playing paintball in real life, rather than just sitting back on your couch and enjoying Call of Duty. Those long 4+ hour gaming sessions are extremely unlikely to happen in VR, because not only will you physically be exhausted, but so will the battery on your Quest 3. VR is much more based on jumping in, jumping out, having a quick, nice experience. There are some exceptions, but the majority of games are just more physical. You play for a bit, maybe 30 minutes to an hour, you break a sweat, and then you kind of move on. A lot of the games are also a lot more casual than you see on the flat screen side. So if you love those super lengthy, tons of depth games, I'm a big fan of RPGs. They're completely underrepresented in VR. So if that's what you're looking for, you might not be satisfied. So the big gamer, if you consider yourself a big gamer, you're playing, 60 hours of Call of Duty a week or something, VR might not be for you. It's really hard for me to say. You have to get a headset, you have to try it, and you have to play a bunch because you got to get past the honeymoon experience. VR should overwhelm you at first. You should put on the headset and be wowed. And for some people that lasts forever, and some people that dies after like 2 months. So I can't fully answer this question for you. I'm just doing my best to explain it. And just know that no flat screen presentation of VR will ever show you what it's actually about. You have to get a headset on and you have to try it. Now that's the big gamer. What if you don't game at all? Well, for the non-gamers or just more casual people out there, virtual reality gaming might be ideal for you. Now, it's still a little hard for me to answer that question because I don't know what's already stopping you from gaming outside of VR right now. But if it does happen to be something like complexity, or you just enjoy physical hobbies more, VR gaming might actually be the answer for you. There's tons of sports simulations out there, so you can enjoy everything from bowling, darts, ping pong, you name it, inside your own house with people over the internet. So you don't have to go somewhere to play. You could get your ping pong game on. That's really great. I know a lot of people who use the headset exclusively for stuff like that, just simulating real world experiences. But VR goes much further than that. And honestly, once again, the Quest 3 offers up the most versatility. There's social applications. So if you like going out, meeting people, making friends, that's an option. There's tons of really cool ways to consume content. The Quest 3 is your own personal mobile viewing station. You could have a really nice, high quality screen that comes with you. So you could watch Netflix when you travel. Or if you only have one TV in the house, well, guess what? Now you have a TV attached to your face. So when your loved one is sitting there hogging up the TV, you could just put on the headset and watch whatever you want. Additionally, VR, specifically the Quest again, is great for working out. I spent an extended period of time, 100 days straight, working out in VR with amazing results. So, doesn't matter if you game or not, there's something for you to do on the Quest 3. Now, why am I saying specifically Quest 3 and not other headsets? Well, we're going to get into that right now. The majority of features are only on Quest 3. You can plug a headset into the PlayStation 5, which would be the PlayStation VR2, and that's primarily for gaming, but the cost of entry is pretty high, and they really don't have a lot of options for content consumption, and it doesn't have that mobility. It's not a traveling screen with you. Wherever your PlayStation is, that's where it's staying. It has to be in that room. And the same goes for PCVR. Now, PCVR, you could connect it to your PC and do anything your PC does. So you can watch Netflix, you can even flat screen game, but the Quest 3 gives you an extra added bonus of being able to do it wirelessly. All the other PC headsets require a tether, and most of them use something called base stations for tracking. So you're going to be limited to one room no matter what. The Quest will give you that freedom. I know this sounds like a Quest promotional video, but it's kind of a no-brainer. Meta has been spending billions on virtual reality every year, and it shows. They've been able to give us not only the cheapest VR headset, but also the best all-in-one package with tons of versatility. Now the final question, is there any reason to buy anything other than a Meta Quest 3 right now? And not really, but I'll get into it. If you are an existing PCVR gamer and you want to upgrade, going directly to the Quest 3, depending on what you have, might not be a huge upgrade. Even if you have something like a Valve Index, which is significantly older at this point. Yes, you'll have a nicer screen. Yes, the screen will be higher resolution, but you're going to lose some FOV and you're going to lose the high quality microphone and speakers. So it's not a direct upgrade. But again, it's a fairly cheap upgrade with additional factors. Now, if you're stuck on PCVR, do not care about mobile games at all, the exclusives that Meta is producing like Batman, Arkham Shadow, if you don't care about that at all, maybe it's possible that some headsets are better suited for you. Gamers who are really into Sims or racing titles may consider picking up something like the Pimax Crystal Light, as it can offer up significantly better PCVR visuals. And if you're only really playing simulation games, being tethered to a PC doesn't matter at all. Now finally, I just want to mention the PlayStation VR2 because it is another completely separate VR option out there. And they've also recently added PCVR capability to the headset. You will have to buy a $60 adapter, but for the price of the headset plus the adapter, you also have a fairly capable PCVR experience. It's probably just as good as the Quest 3 experience when it comes to combining with the PC, except you are still tethered. The Quest 3 does have the capability of allowing you to play wirelessly, but depending on your network, your experience might not be fantastic. So that can be hit or miss depending on how old your hardware is. But honestly, for the average VR gamer who wants to play PCVR titles, the Quest 3 is just about the best option out there, and Steam's own statistics are backing that up. But getting back to the PlayStation VR 2, I only really recommend this headset if you are already in the PlayStation 5 ecosystem and you completely despise some of the more casual VR games that are out there. You definitely do get a lot closer to AAA quality games on the PlayStation VR 2, but I will say they are still few and far between, and the overall genres are extremely limited. If you have no interest in an action title like Horizon Call of the Mountain, or the horror that Resident Evil offers up isn't for you, well then you're just back to all the other third-party games that come out on every other VR platform. Now at this point, I think I pretty much answered all of your questions, but if I did miss something, drop it in the comments. I'll do my best to answer you. Or even better, join one of my live streams where I just sit there and answer questions. So if there's still like 50 questions that went unanswered, you can grill me during a live stream and I will answer, and we can have a long, lengthy conversation about why I feel this way or what's the best option for you. And finally, here's that really quick recap. If $500 is way too much for you to get into VR, just go ahead and wait until the end of September because it looks like Meta will be announcing a cheaper headset. I do recommend you avoid picking up a Quest 2 because it'll no longer be getting the latest and greatest games. And remember, the VR gaming experience is very different than traditional flat screen games. They'll offer up more immersion than you've ever had in your life, but they can also be physically exhausting and a lot more casual. So if you only enjoy really deep, high production value games with tons of mechanics and a lengthy amount of gameplay, VR might not satisfy you. On the other hand, there's tons of additional features like mixed reality or just content consumption, social interaction, things that you get added on by buying a Quest 3. It's not just a gaming device, there's a lot more to it. And finally, there are plenty of other VR headsets and options out there, but for the average person, the ideal headset is the Quest 3 or the cheaper Quest 3S. Unannounced yet, but it's most likely coming. Those are most likely the best headsets for the average person. They offer the biggest bang for the buck. They have all the features you want. They're wireless, mobile, yada, yada, yada. I know, it's a Quest 3 promotional video. I'm just telling it like it is, guys. There are a few niche cases that I already mentioned where something like the Pimax Crystal Light or even the PlayStation VR 2 may be a better option for you, but honestly, those are some outlier cases. The Quest 3 still remains right now the most versatile and cheapest headset you can pick up to get yourself immediately into VR. And that was today's video. If you guys enjoyed it, go ahead and give me a thumbs up. If you're new here, please consider subscribing. And as always, I'll see you guys on next time.